Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Friday Reads. It's Friday again, and this will be my Friday Reads and what I hope to read for next week, along with a few new books that I've received over the last couple of weeks since the beginning, well, near the beginning of the month. Uh, and so this week it's been pretty good, actually. And we've continued on with five more stories from the Future History Project, and they were contained in The Complete Robot by Isaac Asimov. And they were they were good stories. And if you want to look at my playlist, you can see my videos and the co-hosts as well. More detailed discussion of the stories, and also in preparation for tomorrow's book to film, I read Burnt Offerings, and that's by Robert Marasco. It was originally published in 1973. This edition is the Valancourt Books edition with an introduction by Stephen Graham Jones, and this edition was 2015. Um, yeah, so I'll be talking more about that on tomorrow. And on Sundays, I wanted to read something sort of British. And so Sunday, I read this, and I had planned, because there's five books in the series by H.E. Bates. The Larkin series, or the Darling Buds of May series. This is the first book, Darling Buds of May. It's just a small, slim little novella. And I've got all of them, but I don't know where they are, so I won't be able to continue reading this. But it's very enjoyable. This was written in 1958. It's set sort of post-war England with a unusual family. Let's put it that way. Um, and there was at least two uh, series. Well, there was one that was done. I think it was in the early '90s, and that was I really enjoyed. And then there was more recent one that was done, and I watched it, but it was a bit of an abomination. The main actor was just horrible, and they just did some stupid things with it that just would not have happened at the time. And thankfully, it never got renewed for a second series. I continued reading the fourth volume of Isaac Asimov's sort of autobiography slash biography. This one was put together by Janet Jepson Asimov, his widow, and it's basically a cut and paste in some ways of material that was previously published by Asimov, which makes it a bit uneven at times, but she does have joining clauses and in square brackets, but also material from letters that he wrote her. So that's kind of nice. So it is worth the read. Um, and then it does take up to even after his death, but it also has sort of in the as an appendix the 400th, well, a sort of pieced together 400th essay that he would have written for the fantasy and science fiction magazine, and then also he says was his favorite short story called "The Last Question." Was is in the appendix. So I've got about 100 pages left of the text. I've read the appendices, the short story, the last question, and the essay. So I'm sure I'll be finishing that this coming week. Oh, and I also started this here by James Gunn, the Foundations. Well, it's Isaac Asimov, the Foundations of Science Fiction. This is the revised edition that he did in 1996. This is the Scarecrow Press 2005 paperback edition, albeit print on demand, but it was originally done in 1982 by Oxford University Press, and I've read it. I read it then, or well, I read the 1982 version, and of all the stuff that I've read, which isn't all of books that have been written about Asimov, this was the best so far. I do have a stack of them, which I think are everything that's been written, solid, like full books that I hope to be able to read and reread throughout the year. And it'd be nice if I get something else that's as good as this, or even better. That'll be great. So yeah, so I'll be continuing this on that this coming week. And also, I wasn't quite going to start this, but I did. It's the second autobiography, Enjoy Still Felt. I'm 452 pages in of 800 pages, so I definitely will be finishing this in the coming week, and because I wanted to get it all done before February. Uh, there's the third volume, which I'm leaving a little bit because he does it in sort of topics, and I want to do little videos of some of the topics, so I'll read those as the weeks go on and have them fresh in my mind to do the videos. And this was the first volume of the autobiography, and I'm really enjoying them because he he's very he's very verbose. He likes talking about himself, and basically there's like 1,500 pages in these two volumes, and but I'm thoroughly enjoying them. Like the first volume, is covering sort of his youth up to 1954 till he was 24 or 34 years old. Sorry, uh, yeah, 34 years old, and then the one that I'm finishing now or reading now, it's more of his adult life and switching from science fiction to writing nonfiction. So there's lots of stories of his writing process, his problems with editors, or even editors that are really good, and it talks about how he relished the idea and jumped at any opportunity to write about a subject a lot of times that he didn't know much about. He never did original research in the sense of going to archives. He just used other reference material and other books to write, to condense it and to generalize it. If it was science or even history, generalize it and put his spin on it and his style, which is fine. He popularized many subjects, and there's also stories of him meeting, conventions, meeting other science fiction writers, about him with L. Sprague de Camp, Poul Anderson, Harlan Ellison, obviously John Campbell, Arthur C. Clarke. He met, Carl Sagan. He says they became friends, and all sorts of other, luminaries in science fiction at the time. Judith Merril, Lester Del Rey, Elizabeth Del Rey, his first wife, just all sorts of people and fans that he met. And there's little stories that he talks about that he would sign anything. He would sign, scrap a piece of paper. He says a lot of writers wouldn't sign anything unless it was a hardcover book, but he'd sign paperbacks, he'd sign magazines, and also people would put blank checks in front of him, he said, and he would sign those. But he says he would sign it as Harlan Ellison. So, he's got little stories like that. And he says, he's blowing his trumpet throughout this thing, but he also says he wants to put in, stuff that he did stupid things he did, and, mistakes that he did. Uh, and he was talking to Ben Bova, and he told him that he wanted to put the mistakes in as well, and Ben Bova basically quipped and said, "Oh, is that why it's so long?" So yeah, 1,500 pages. But yeah, and he just writes the usual style that he does. It's very clear, lively, uh, very chatty in many ways, I would say. And even though I still have difficulties reading nonfiction, I'm not really having any problem reading those. So yeah, so I'm going to continue next week and finish the Enjoy Still Felt. Um, And then also too, this one I've read about half of it. It's astounding. It's John W. Campbell, Isaac Asimov, Robert A. Heinlein, L. Ron Hubbard, and the Golden Age of Science Fiction by Alec Novella Lee. This is a more recent book. This was published uh, in 2018 by. I can get to the title page. Can't separate the page. There we go. It's an imprint of William Morrow, Day Street. And I've read about half of it, I suppose, but I jumped around and read a little bit, so I'm going to read it from the beginning through to the end. So hopefully I can get this done in the week. It's shorter than the others, so it's about 500 pages, but if not, it'll be well on its way by the end of the week. Also, for the next book to film will be Dashiell Hammett's Glass Key. That'll be a quick read. Let's see what else here. Also, too, there'll be at least the one other, I think, because I was hoping to have the other Darling Buds of May books by H.G. Bates, but I don't know where they are, so those will have to be put on hold. So I'll see if I can find something else, like another short little book, a fun book to read during the week if I got time, and also maybe dip back into this. It's not a very good biography, but I don't want to give up on it. It is short. It's only like 250 pages, so I will eventually finish this, and if I get a little time, I might dip back into it this coming week. And for books that came in the post, I'd said, or I mentioned that I read Moby Dick a week or so ago, and I was reading that with Brandy at the Book Eclectic, and I mentioned at the time to her that I want to read the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket by Edgar Allan Poe, and I always wanted to read those two together, sort of, or close by each other, like shortly after, one after the other. And I've never read this because Poe is somebody that I haven't rushed in ever to read everything he's done. I always want to read every so often a new story, and then reread stories as well. So this will be coming up, but I received this this past week, just a really good cheap copy off eBay. It's a Penguin edition. And I will be joining the February fantasy stories in February. I wasn't going to, but after I was explained some of the prompts, because I wanted to read a little more fantasy. I wanted to dip into it, not the epic fantasies of 1,000 page, 50 volumes, 1,000, 1,500 pages each. I'm not particularly interested in those, but I thought, dipping into short stories would be good. And there was a short story collection that I wanted, but I couldn't really afford it. However, because I got a rebate this past week of I ordered some Blu-rays early last year from Amazon, and it was their Amazon US or global store, and it includes prices for customs fees and so forth. And occasionally, when I've done it, or almost every time, I think, but it takes a long time to get a rebate if the amount is not used. I would get a rebate, and this time I got a rebate, and it was enough to buy the book that I wanted, the Big Book of Classic Fantasy by Anne and Jeff Vandermeer. They did the Big Book of, they've done many, but the Big Book of Science Fiction, which I have, which is very good. This is a lot smaller. It's about a third less. It's only about 800 pages, and the other one's like 1,200. But this is what I wanted, because it'll be good for the classic science fiction. I need to find. There's one area that I dark fantasy or grimoire, or was it grim fantasy or something like that. If anybody knows this book and knows which stories fit that, then please let me know, because otherwise I'm going to be floundering around trying to find some short stories that fit that. And but I'll be doing a more detailed video on Sunday regarding this. But also too, I've wanted to read for quite some time, or reread. Well, I should say read, because I've only read a few of the Conan stories by Robert E. Howard, and I found a nice cheap copy. Yes, it's got a bit of a curve to it there. Looks like something was heavy on and it was over the edge. It's got a bit of a thing, but it was really really cheap on eBay. So, and I was really surprised that that came today. So this is really good. This is the original stories, reprinted by Ballantine Books, Del Rey Books, and it's the paperback edition. It's illustrated. I'm looking forward to this, and there's two other volumes which I probably will eventually pick up, and then another category was explained to me was was it urban fantasy, and it was described to me as, well, it'd be like, a detective that is supernatural and into supernatural things, and all of a sudden, bing, 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 a memory sort of popped in. And the one that I really wanted to reread then was The Casebook of Carnacki, The Ghost Finder by William Hope Hodgson's. This is a very cheap production, Wordsworth edition. It's very short. It's like 191 pages. There's 9 short stories in here, but I remember loving these. And also too, I have on my Kindle, I think there's six or eight uh, um, uh, Sax Rohmer stories of another sort of detective. It's Morris Claw. Claw is the surname. The K, with a K, not a C. And then there's also Algernon Blackwood's John Silence, which was a bit earlier. But the I remember loving all these, so this will be a real pleasure to get back into these. So I'm very very pleased with that. And another book that I got, again, I just, I was really really pleased to get this. There's hardly any damage to this. It was called Very Good, and it was so cheap on eBay. It wound up coming, I think, from Germany or something, and it took forever to get here. I had hoped this would be here for when I did the Night of the Hunter book to film, because that's what it's about. It's heaven and hell to play with, the filming of Night of the Hunter by Preston Neil Jones, and it's by Limelight Editions, and it's 400. It's almost 400 pages, just shy of 400 pages, and it's yeah, the filming, that came out in 2002. There's another volume that I would like to get regarding the film, but it's out of print and they want too much money for it. But yeah, this was this I thought was, there was a few things that were a bit of a steal. Uh, these two were, I thought, a steal for price wise. So I was very pleased to get that, and also I got a good price on that. But that came with a rebate, so I'm more than happy. So yeah, so that's my Friday reads for this week. As I say, tomorrow will be Burnt Offerings, the book to film. Fingers crossed, I get the video done. Sunday, I will do my sort of TBR and announcement, or official announcement for the February fantasy stories, and yeah, and next week there'll be more reading. Well, I didn't mention, but I'll be reading more of the Isaac Asimov Future History. We're getting into the Powell and Donovan, well, the second half of the Powell and Donovan stories, and beginning the Susan Calvin stories. So I look forward to that. And as I say, if you have any questions or anything, do make comments or send me an email. My email is in the description. Take care, BookTube. Have a good weekend.